It's time for TWiG, This Week in Google, episode 30. A great panel coming up for you. Coming up this week, Google starts a power utility. Eric Schmidt says Buzz harmed no one. And RIP Google Gears. This Week in Google is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiG.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. This is TWiG, This Week in Google, episode 30 for February 21st, 2010, The Scoble Effect. This Week in Google is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Picture yourself on a phone call, sharing and explaining something visual with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/twig. It's time for TWiG, This Week in Google, with the panelists here gathered today to talk about Google and the cloud, but really the way Google's on a roll, I think it's going to be mostly Google. Starting with, in the upper left-hand corner, Googler himself, Matt Cutts. From,
good to be here. Thank you.
MattCutts.com. Matt works on the website at Google, blocking web spam. And actually, I have a question for you that was raised, I think, on Twit last week, but we'll talk about it, about, well, maybe it was on this show, about this new form of journalism. We'll talk about it in a second, but let me introduce the rest of the panel. Also with us, Jeff Jarvis of BuzzMachine.com, journalist, professor of journalism, and the author of the book, What Would Google Do? Hey, Jeff.
Professor always makes me feel so old.
Professor Jarvis. Calling Professor Jarvis.
The fact that I look at two doesn't help.
We're
prematurely gray.
Yeah, exactly. You're a young man. Also here, I'm glad to see Anil Dash is with us from Expert Labs. Hi, Anil.
Hello.
Good to have you. Great to have you back. Now, are you still at 6 Apart as well, or is Expert Labs?
No. I'd left 6 Apart a little while ago to do this Expert Labs project.
We're going to talk about that in just a second, because your newest, I don't want to say hire, but your newest person is Gina Trapani from CompleteWaveGuide.com and founder of Lifehacker, star of O Magazine. Yeah, sorry about your grandpa, and I'm glad you're back.
Thank you. Yes, I was having serious twig withdrawal. Very happy.
Well, yeah. Poor Gina missed the Buzz episode.
Oh, it was killing me. I listened to it, of course, this week on my phone, and I was yelling at you guys in my car.
Good. Now you know how the listeners feel, Gina.
What did we get wrong, Gina? What did we get wrong?
No, it was awesome. It was a great show, but I was yelling about agreeing and disagreeing. I was thinking about all the things I would have said. So hopefully we'll get to recap a little.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a lot about Buzz, but there's just Google has been so busy. But before we do that, a couple of days ago, I saw a tweet from Anil Dash and then an article. You've gone to work for Expert Labs. First, Anil, tell us what Expert Labs is, and then tell us what Gina's going to be up to.
Sure. The lofty description of Expert Labs is that our job is to help policymakers make better decisions by giving them the tools and the technology to crowdsource questions. The practical part of it is, and the reason that we brought Gina on board, is we're going to make a technology platform that lets folks from the White House to all the other government agencies do what all of us take for granted, right? Like if you're looking to buy a new phone, you can ask on Twitter or on Friend Feed for 100 people to give you feedback about what phone you should get.
Right.
Well, the president should be able to do the same thing. Right.
You'd think the president would have somebody, but I guess, yeah, I mean, but you want tech experts.
They don't have the tools.
Right.
They don't have good tools for it. Fortunately, Gina's been building something exactly like that with her think tank app, and so we're able to sponsor that. And the great thing about it is we're not a government agency. We don't work for the government, and so one of the things we can demonstrate is you can be a hacker and you can be a coder, and you don't have to work for the government to work for your country, and that's a pretty exciting idea.
I like
and of course,
that.
Nobody in the world is better than Gina to do it.
Yeah. So Gina, what are you going to be doing?
So I'm the project director of Think Tank, which is this open source project, which I've talked about on the show before. It used to be called Twitalytic. This is my Twitter archiver and data crawler. Yeah, so I've been working on this kind of nights and weekends for almost a year now. But we changed the name because we're gonna incorporate information from more services than just Twitter. And it's up on GitHub. It's free for anyone to download and try out and contribute. Please, please, please. I need good PHP programmers to help me out. And yeah, I'm really excited. So I'm coding and figuring out ways to make it pluggable so we can add other services like Buzz and blogs, and to just be able to have a place to kind of collect your interactions on these social networks and make decisions based on the replies you get. I was saying to Anil last night, it's like companies like Facebook and Google can collect all sorts of information about you to advertise to you really well. Well, I think that you should have the right to collect your own data, the data from your friends as well, to put it, to use for your own purposes.
Right.
So hopefully Think Tank's going to help do that in a little way.
And the most amazing thing here is the first customer for it is the White House. They've got a project called Grand Challenges, which is trying to find the big scientific technology challenges facing the country, right? Whether that's the next moon landing or the next human genome sequence, and they want it, the public at large to be submitting their ideas as to what those challenges are going to be, and the platform that's going to power it is Think Tank, which is just incredibly exciting.
That's really neat. Wow.
Let me ask you a question, you guys. The challenge, obviously, so far in the government trying to use the My Starbucks Idea, Dell Idea Storm kind of ideas platform was that it got gamed by the marijuana crowd so quickly, and everything's gameable. How do you get to the right people? How do you get to the quality of the discussion? What's the way you're going to have this more qualitative view of discussion?
The goal is
a kind of first stab, and maybe Gina, you can do the real answer with the technology. But I was going to say, to some degree, there's going to be people saying legalize pot on any question.
Well, I'm not against that, but it was gamed by that. So the problem is the whole thing kind of gets dismissed because just stupid stuff. It's just pot, and there are good ideas in there that need to bubble up.
Right, so philosophically, we're not building a voting system. So we're not saying a policymaker has to go with whatever gets the most votes, and that's how they choose the policy. Where if they're trying to find out what a big scientific challenge is going to be, and a bunch of people say, well, the challenge is what can we do with hemp? What they can do is they can say, I hear you. I see that there's a bunch of responses there. We take that in good faith, and we put that there with a number next to it saying how many people felt that way. But that isn't that doesn't mean we're subservient to that vote count, right?
No. So then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah. So it's really about, we assume policymakers have good judgment, and we think so much about these kind of contentious issues or the silly distractions of whoever has an axe to grind about some minor issue. But the reality is most of policymaking is actually really pragmatic, practical stuff that is common sense, and they just need more info to make decisions. I don't know, Gina, if you have more to add than that.
Well, I mean, on the tech side, in the web application itself, I mean, my plan is to kind of make a long list of thousands of replies, something that's very easily filtered and curated by the people who want to put that data to use. So imagine kind of like an iTunes Smart Playlist interface for the replies. You can say, okay, roll up all the responses about marijuana. We acknowledge these, and we're going to put these here, and we're going to put the total, and make all those sort of filtering rules transparent, so everyone sees, how are these replies ranked and filtered and curated, and to use lists. So, Expert Labs is part of AAAS, which is the world's largest scientific organization. But if we have a list of member scientists who, we know are affiliated with the organization, we know that the answers are coming from people who at least identified with that organization.
So one more here, because Buzz is better with discussion, with conversation. Is Buzz potentially a better tool for you than Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I mean, I think Buzz is definitely one of the services that we want to plug into Think Tank. Definitely, the behavior is different, obviously, on Twitter and Buzz. On Buzz, people respond to one another in line, where on Twitter, because you don't have threaded conversations, you just get this big mass of replies, and people don't see the replies that other people have posted in response to a single tweet. So yeah, I mean, Buzz does offer that kind of back and forth, but Twitter can be used as well. I mean, if the platform is able to reply back to all the people who asked about a certain issue, and engage them in further conversation, which is something I'd like to do, then you can have kind of that similar thing. Although Buzz displays those conversations, those back and forths by default much more clearly.
Yeah, and I think, the technology hopefully works with all these systems, right? All of the above is the best answer. And I think one of the great things about this is if we build a system that connects to all these, if Think Tank gets plugins to support all these networks, we start to see what each of the networks is good at. That's actually a pretty interesting learning too. We have like a grant from the MacArthur Foundation supporting this. We're part of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. The mindset in both of those organizations is just publish your findings. tell us what you've learned. And if one of the things we learned is this network's good for this kind of conversation, and this other one is better for this other kind of conversation, here's what Twitter's better at versus Buzz and vice versa. That's pretty cool to learn too.
It also brings in the scientific culture of problem solving, which we need in government.
Yeah,
very much so.
You're at AAAS right now, right? The both of you.
Yes.
That's neat.
The
That's
meeting.
Exciting.
The meeting. We're both here. Well, Gina's always here in San Diego, but I'm down here, and it's mind blowing. Last night we, got to go to this reception to meet some of the folks here, and there were 3 Nobel Prize winners in the room, and you just feel like the kid at the grown-ups table. It's pretty amazing that being a geek can get you access to that kind of thing.
Expertlabs.org, not .com, .org.
That's right.
And you can follow it at Expert Labs on Twitter to see what's going on. I think that's really, really, really exciting. So, Gina, you didn't get to talk about Buzz. Matt Cutts, you didn't either. Actually, let me have a question for you first, Matt. I know your job at Google is anti-spam, kind of people trying to game the Google results. Do you work on spam in Buzz as well, or is that a separate kind of a business?
We haven't historically. There is a central group that takes care of spam within Google that's not web spam, and so typically that group is going to tackle it. But the nice thing is that we do consult back and forth.
Right.
So I wouldn't be at all surprised if I see some spammers, to report it to them, and even sharing best practices on things like spam in Google Maps can be really, really helpful. Sharing the same sorts of tools. So I saw my first Google Buzz spammer a couple days ago. So that adrenaline starts pounding.
It's
and
icky
feeling about how to get them.
Yeah. I block immediately when I see it, and I presume that by blocking, I'm kind of signaling. And there's also, I think there's a report spam button as there is on Gmail.
Yeah.
I'm loving Buzz. I have to say I'm using it an awful lot. I know you do too, Matt. Gina, you've been using it a lot. What did you want to tell us? Because you weren't here last week about Buzz, Gina. What were you yelling at the radio?
So this is the thing. I like Buzz. There are a lot of things I like about it. I think there are a lot of problems with it. I think there are a lot of ways that it can evolve and should evolve. I do think that the fundamental mistake, though, with the launch was launching it in Gmail. I understand that it got them a lot of users immediately,
right
but
away.
as far as I'm concerned, they needed to launch Buzz as a standalone beta product where people could very clearly opt in or opt out. And even if it was a really short beta period, like 4 to 6 weeks, and just let the early adopters jump in and invite one another like Wave or like Gmail originally. And these the privacy problems that happened would have surfaced a lot sooner and would have been a lot less severe. And then at the end of the beta period, even if it's a short beta period, even if it's a short testing period, then bake it into Gmail. It felt like, I think Yuri described it as a bold move. To me, it felt like a foolish one. And it felt like a kind of like, oh, we have to ship this and we need to get 140 million users in, immediately. And and that felt that was hard. Whatever. I'm not going to rehash all the privacy stuff. It was an alarming a thing that Google decided to test this in-house with only Google employees and not extend it to their trusted tester program and just have it out in beta as sort of just a kind of test preview like Wave thing first. It felt like, I was like, did they have were they late? Did they have some sort of ship date? Was there some kind of deadline that they had to push things ahead? I don't know, and I won't put Matt on the spot. But that all said, and the privacy issues were very serious, and what Eric Schmidt said about it made me very nervous. Eric Schmidt makes me very nervous in general.
Really?
Which part of what he said, Gina?
He makes me nervous. The things he said about privacy before freaked me out. The old quote, which was, if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. If you need that level of privacy, maybe you shouldn't be doing the thing you're doing. And then I think this week he said, well, no one was hurt, which is true. Meaning the Buzz privacy issues. No one was hurt, which is true. But what I really would have liked to have heard
we don't
from
even
him,
know that no one was hurt, so it may not even be true.
It may not even be true, but what I wanted to hear from him is what Todd said. I thought Todd Jackson, the product manager of Gmail, I mean, the fact that he just came straight out and said, we are really sorry and we're working really hard.
That's the
and I have to say, I've been super impressed with Google's response to this. I mean, I think that Google is becoming more and more human on the lower ranks anyway.
Right.
You're getting a lot more communication and a lot. For him to come out and just say, we really screwed up and we're trying to make it better. And I have to tell you, I know that this was embarrassing and I don't think it's going to happen again this way. So that's good. It was a learning experience. But no, the fact that Schmidt said, well, no one was hurt. What I really wanted to hear from him was, we screwed up and we're sorry and we're fixing it. And I guess that was part of the message as well. But That all said, Buzz makes a lot of sense. I agree with you, Leo. It makes a lot of sense. It's a missing puzzle piece. It ties together a lot of different, services. I like it. It's still, still a little, some problems here and there. It suffers a little bit from the friend feed. Like, this is too complicated. What's going on? What's all this stuff? How did people get this in here? Feeling. But otherwise, yeah, I'm liking it. I mean, it's not Google Apps is my main Gmail account, so I have to go to my, regular Gmail account to see it right now. So I haven't been using it as much as usual. I mean, I connected my sites, and that was it pretty much. I'm using it more like a broadcast mechanism than a discussion forum right now. But I think that'll change once I see it in apps.
Matt, do you have anything you want to say? I don't want to.
Yeah, definitely. I can mount a soft defense, which is, I'll take Eric's side on a lot of stuff in that, I remember whenever I joined Google and the stock price was very, very low. And I went home.
Well, rub it in, why don't you, Matt?
It's germane to the anecdote.
I bought at $5.19, Matt.
It really does make sense. I went home to my wife.
Not your best sympathy building technique.
Okay.
I joined. It was $10 a share. I don't know.
Let me start that over again. So I remember whenever Eric Schmidt joined, he came to a TGIF and he answered questions for like an hour.
Wow.
And I went home and I told my wife the value of our stock just went up by like a factor of 10 because he clearly got it, and I think he absolutely does get it. So last year I think he was a little bit taken out of context because the question was, can Google be your best friend? And just the mere fact that any major financial news reporter can ask a large CEO question. Corporation, can your company be your best friend?
Right.
That's in some sense a good thing, and I think he had to answer in the fact that in his capacity as CEO. That said, all the people who don't like that answer, the Patriot Act is coming up for renewal in like March or February pretty soon, so that's a good chance for people to start to say, well, I don't want things like the Patriot Act. But taking it back to Buzz for just a second, the thing that I found that is the best indicator of whether a team is going to be successful, there's really a couple, but the primary one is how fast they can iterate. The second one I would say is how well they listen to outside feedback. And I think Todd Jackson and that entire team has done an amazing job of saying, okay, Google has gotten scalded on both sides. They say, well, Gmail was in beta for 5 years, and on the other hand, I take the point about launching with a little more testing. And at the same time, if you can get it live, especially a social networking sort of product, if you can get that live where everyone can play with it, it's not on an invite sort of basis, pretty early on, then that lets you try out a lot of different things. I'm already getting more reactions on some of my buzzes than on my blog. I did a question like, well, who do you guys use for your domain name registrar? And got something like 120 comments in a day or so.
Which, of course, raises the #1 complaint people have, which is actually 2, which is how do I collapse these damn comments, and then how do I keep Matt Cutts from rising to the top of the page every day?
Yes.
Well, it's not. It's the Scoble problem. We should just call it that.
Right. Let's not blame Matt for it because frankly, I'm kind of party to that too.
Yuri, I just saw in Buzz while we were talking that Yuri put up a Google moderator page with suggestions on how to fix Buzz and votes there. It's a perfect use of Google moderator, I think.
Yes.
To become recursive here in using the Google tool to fix Google and help provide that kind of input that Matt just talked about. And so it should be on the friend feed page momentarily.
Right. Yeah, and it's pretty clear that the team's responsive. They immediately responded to the privacy issues and fixed that. Although Google is being sued, there's a class action lawsuit coming out of Florida. That's what drives me nuts. The privacy advocates come out of the woodwork and go berserk. And I just think we've got to get over that. And at some point, you don't want to use Buzz. Don't use Buzz. Yeah, I'm kind of with you.
Just don't use it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't clear how to turn off. I mean, it really wasn't easy to see how to opt out of Buzz. I mean,
but at some point, the immediate rush to sue and to claim that Google is ruining all of life and the internet has ruined everything, then fine, turn it off.
Right.
Sorry.
No, I'm kind of with you.
I do think the other side of it, when there's a new service, is there should be a little bit of an internal checklist process on this. And I think, Matt, you and I have had this conversation before, where I want people to see the Google dashboard of all their services on the way into the new service. So the first time it pops up and says, here's a new service you can try out. It says, by the way, here's everything else that's connected to it.
A lot of people didn't even know that Google Dashboard existed. So
yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Because it was announced almost like a product, and then we forgot about it once it wasn't new anymore.
Right. If you go to google.com/dashboard, I think that's it. And then you have to be logged into your account.
That is it, right? I don't have a Yahoo dashboard. I don't have a Windows Live dashboard. So it's a great thing. Just let me see it more.
Right. So it tells you, what Google services you're using, what your logins are. And if you go to the Buzz section, it tells you quite a bit. In fact, somebody was complaining, oh, there's no way I could see what people have liked or what they've commented on. It actually gives you a link to all of that. So you can see what people are saying and what their most recent posts are. Is that visible to other people, or is that only visible to me, like my likes? That maybe something needs to be exposed publicly. I don't know. And yeah, I'm sure that the collapsing thing will happen. And they've already fixed. They say that the Google Buzz blog says we've kind of weighted against these noisy people rising to the top quite so fast.
Yeah, if you can take care of the Scoble problem and sort of...
I love it that it's the Scoble problem, by the way.
Well, he's such a corner case, He's got so many thousands of people that follow him.
Right.
But if you can take care of that, then suddenly things get a lot cleaner. And the fact that they can do 2 or 3 pushes a week if they have to means they can iterate according to that feedback, which is really helpful. This
is what I said actually last week, is that if Google maintains its commitment to this should improve very rapidly and become very powerful. And you have the network effect built in. So many sites like this start and can't, immediately get enough people to make them useful. That's built in. I can understand why they launched in Gmail, as bad as that was, because you've got the network effect. You're ready to go.
Well, and personally, the thing that not a lot of people have mentioned is enterprise, because we've been using it internally at Google for months, and the fact that you can share articles just within your company and discuss it there and get feedback and have ideas, brainstorm is a really useful way to use Buzz.
Matt, was everyone in Google using Buzz?
I don't know whether everyone was turned into the beta, but there was a large number of people.
It's so incredible that a secret can be kept that way.
I know. Nobody knew about this. It was like, even Arrington didn't have this. It was amazing. Just came out of nowhere.
Well, it is impressive how many services it's plugged into.
Yeah.
When I first saw it show up on mobile maps, that was almost the first place I saw it. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So,
and 3 cheers for APIs and open standards. Definitely.
Yes.
We're very happy about that.
It seems like they've intended from the beginning to be very open about getting the data in, taking the data out, getting RSS feeds of everything. So, that's the embrace that you want.
Right.
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, enough about Buzz. Unless anybody has anything else they want to say about Buzz. We're using Buzz. I'm actually, I think we're probably going to migrate from friend feed to Buzz, although there's some features that we have, like the friend feed rooms, that are really useful. For instance, we pipe all the stories we're going to talk about into a room in friend feed where people can comment on it and so forth, and I don't quite have that yet. But I imagine, since this looks so much like friend feed, any feature that I had set from friend feed I'd like. And how many of you follow Mashable and are going to stop because they just own the... We were talking about this, weren't we,
I
Jeff?
don't want to lose Mashable because it's so good, and it's a good feed, but that's a success problem Google better figure out fast.
Yeah, because Mashable always is on the top. And because they're using it, first of all, because they have 20,000 followers, there's a lot of commenting going on, but also they're using it as a news feed. It's turning Buzz into a news reader with commenting. It's a little bit like Google Reader exposed into Buzz. The other thing that Yuri said in his blog post, which I didn't really kind of highlight last week, and I should have, was that this brings in, a lot of things we've seen as we've been doing this show over the last year, like Latitude. A lot of these little launches now all make a lot more sense. The way that groups work in contacts. Oh, now I can use groups when I post. All make more sense because we've got a context around it all. I think it's working quite well.
The business, and I don't think we've begun to see the impact this is going to have on maps, and thus on local and advertising.
Yeah, I put the Buzz layer on immediately on the maps in my phone. Now let me ask you, Jeff, because I'm getting the feeling you're liking your.
Yeah. I've been making myself use it pretty much full time, and I carry both, belt and suspenders. But no, I am liking the Android more and more, and I just downloaded some more apps today that made me happy that they were there, like WordPress is there and other things that make me happy.
Yep.
So,
in fact, we're going to talk about one that you tweeted towards the end of the show. A visit from the guy who wrote it, Daniel Switkin. He saw your tweet saying how much he loved Google Shopper, and he's going to stop by and talk about it.
Right.
For a bit at the end of the show. He'll be available in a few minutes, and we'll get him on.
But just a note, no developer wants to hear from a user, I'm making myself use it.
I'm forcing myself to use this damn Nexus one.
I've been making myself to use it, and it's not so bad.
No, actually, no, Gina, the truth is, you made me use it.
Yes. Blame Gina.
What you say, Gina, I listen to you.
Blame Gina. It's her fault.
Well, there's an interesting...
And Gina, as I say to my wife often, you're right, honey.
Yes, dear.
If you remember
it's a phone, not a treadmill, right? Like you want to be enjoying it.
I feel like it's more like a treadmill. Go ahead.
I loved that there was a couple posts by Jason Kincaid on TechCrunch and then Danny Sullivan. And I think Jason said, you have to use Android for a while and get used to it. And Danny Sullivan replied, I didn't have to use the iPhone for a while to get used to it.
True.
And there's an interesting point, but I think with the iPhone, I was using a dumb sort of feature phone before that, and the delta was so huge, you were just, of course, you're going to switch to the iPhone.
Right.
And Android and the iPhone are different. It does take a little more time to get used to the Android system, especially if you've been using an iPhone. But then once you get used to it and you figure out all the different ways to get to the more information and some of the nice sort of open features where you can write your own apps for free, that sort of stuff, that's where it really starts to get addictive for me.
Well, and when people go
from
a dumb clamshell to an Android, they never have a problem.
No,
right? It's the
BlackBerry,
iPhone to Android that's hard.
Right, because they want the iPhone capabilities. Yeah.
It's a totally different paradigm. It's a different interface, and the iPhone to Android transition is definitely a rocky one. But the clamshell to Android, my brother got Android phone after having, and he was like, I love it. He has no idea what the iPhone does.
The angels
or
are
is,
singing.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing that still gets me is that the need for that millisecond to think before I hit. Now, what does the search button do in this case?
Right.
I hit that button and I got this that time, and that it's the soft key problem, which fine, I'll get used to.
Have you guys had problems with the keyboard being either touchy or off, like the digitizer's misplaced? It's just been a little funky. It's hard for me to type on it compared to the iPhone.
Just my space bar drives me nutty.
Space bar, you'll hit it by accident.
I hit that all the time, and it thinks it's a whole new word.
I hit send all the yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes when I find that my touches are off a little bit, you just tap the off, like sleep it, and then awake it again, and things seem to recenter. So.
I don't know, I've been using Task
Swipe.
Killer. You like Swipe? That's an alternate keyboard.
In the chat room too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been putting up with it keeps popping this dialogue because it's like an alpha,
SWYPE.
Yeah.
Well, I can't just install that, right? You have to do a fancy thing.
No, you can install it. You just have
you go to a website to install it. Like it's not. Right. I don't believe it's in the market.
It's not in the market.
And it's a test build, so it keeps popping this dialogue saying like, we don't support this screen resolution. I deal with the dialogue all the time. I have to deal with dismissing the dialogue just to get the keyboard. It's much better for me typing.
Well, I will say to their credit, it's interesting watching the Windows Phone thing come from Microsoft, where they will probably avoid some of the comparison with iPhone that Android has suffered from, because it's such a different user experience model. It's much more data-centric. And so I think that was a pretty smart move, because I think Android is similar enough to iPhone that you end up making those comparisons. And it's like if you're coming out with a new phone, the thing to do is to not be that close to iPhone so you don't suffer.
The Windows Mobile, and they call it Windows 7 Phone Series, nicely named, Microsoft.
Windows Phone 7, I don't know.
Windows Phone 7, anyway.
7 Series.
There's no live in the name?
No.
Come on.
It's terrible. It's the worst. Microsoft, if there's one thing Microsoft does badly, it's come up with names. But anyway.
That's not the only thing.
Yeah, maybe there's two things. Anyway.
Not a native English speaker, whoever named it.
Yeah, it's like, what? But it also doesn't follow in sequence, because, it has been Windows Mobile, and they just dropped it. It's like, no, it's not mobile anymore. What? But anyway, it looks good. Looks on paper, it looks really good. It has great social networking. It's based kind of on the Zune, to be honest. It's the Zune paradigm. But we won't see phones till the end of the year, so it's not a player for a while.
I just went to the Swipe site, by the way, and on the 15th they announced they got $1 million from Docomo.
Oh, the Japanese
and
telecom.
That they're launching on the T-Mobile MyTouch 3G on Feb 10. So it's their first official, get it on the phone launch.
So the thing that, just so you know, if you go there, that's different is you don't tip, 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 tap. You move your finger around and you spell the word by. It's kind of takes a little while to get used to, but it does seem more accurate, I have to say, Gina.
It's definitely more accurate. I don't like touch. I just haven't gotten used to the touch keyboard. I never liked it. I didn't like it on the iPhone either, and that's why I got the G1 because I really like the physical keyboard, and I still struggle with the touch keyboard on the N1. But now it's why you have to walk through the tutorial. Like at first, there are a couple of tricks that you have to know. Like if you're spelling the word good and you need the O to show up twice, you twirl around on the O and it knows to double it up.
I couldn't figure out how to double. You go like this. You go.
You twirl around. So you move across the keyboard and twirl. Yeah, but now I've gotten really good with it, and I can't.
I'm gonna put it back on. I have it on here. I downloaded it, and it bugged me because it's the pop-up bugged me.
Can you turn it on or off at will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
The other thing I've been doing is I've been using voice for search. I haven't used it to post.
I use voice all the time. Oh, it's so good.
It occurred to me the other way. This way, so we always. How many years did it take when we thought people looked like idiots walking down the street talking on their?
I'm always going.
Now they're gonna be,
I'm doing it all the time.
Chipotle.
And I do it, and I go. I am now at the eye doctor. Period. And it does very well if you talk like that, but you look like a weirdo.
We're going to see that on the street
I think
real
it's
soon.
funny. As geeks, we think it's a good thing when the software has trained us what to do as opposed to vice versa.
Hey, as long as it works, I don't care if I have to jump through hoops. Just make it work.
Give it 5 years and everybody will be doing that. It'll be the social norm. And if you see someone not talking into their phone, you'll think they're kind of unusual or quirky.
There'll be whole quiet cars on Amtrak where you're not allowed to use voice search.
They already think I'm unusual or quirky. Now, wait till you see me at South by Southwest. We built a rig. I'm going to wear a helmet with a light and a camera on it.
You're coming.
You're coming.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to meet you in person finally, Leo. It's going to be
We've never met,
fantastic.
Gina?
We have never met in person. I know. I feel like you're my internet dad, and I've never
met either, Leo.
Dad? Dad?
Gina, that was
Brother.
Dad?
That was
No, my internet
Uncle.
president.
Your uncle, maybe. Dad.
My uncle.
No, I could be your
Sorry.
dad. It's true. It's sad but true.
Granddad would have been fully uncle.
Grandfather, yeah. No, so we're getting a helmet. Colleen's building because I talked to Scoble and he said, well, you can't really. We wanted to cover it, and he said you can't. The sessions are all streamed, so there's nothing to cover there, and there's no like lobby con because there's too many venues, I guess. So there's nowhere to set up and say, "Oh, come over here." So he said,
"Well, the whole thing is a lobby con."
Well, he said,
why listen to Scoble?
Well, that was maybe my
your first
mistake.
mistake?
He was trying to get me to dress up in a Super Dave Osborne suit. But anyway, so
That guy ruined Buzz, I heard.
oh, him, the guy who ruined Buzz. What am I talking to him for? So he said, really, actually got experts here. You tell me. Because I've never been. He said it's about the parties.
I guess it depends who you
No, it's about just running into people you know.
Well, that's
set up anywhere in the convention center.
I'm not going to set up. I'm going to have a remote rig and a backpack and a helmet camera and a helmet light, and I'm going to walk around.
Well, you don't have to worry
You
about
could also just plop down somewhere and you will see everybody.
I might get tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the serendipitous running into people.
Right.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's about the parties.
Okay.
But it is
That's
also
good to
probably
know.
not about the panels.
Anyway, I
can't
figured
take Jake to all the parties. Some of it's illegal to do because he's too young.
right. So what we're going to do is if you were me, it's going to be a kind of telepresence. If you were me at South by Southwest, this is what it would be like.
Cool. Are we going to do our show from there, Leo?
Yes, since you're all there, right?
Very cool.
Well, then you got to come to our kickball game. We're going to have a kickball game Saturday morning.
Oh, I'm definitely coming to the kickball game.
The
I just
kickball
want to
game
see
is
like kickball with a
awesome.
helmet on and a camera.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So now are you going to be broadcasting live? Or?
Yeah, well, I have to do the radio show from there. So I'll 11 to 2 Saturday, I'll do the radio show from our Austin affiliate. But they're going to be broadcasting from South by Southwest on Sunday. So Sunday I'll be doing the radio show live there. We'll do a TWiG live. We'll find, I don't know, you all, maybe we'll have to make helmets for you guys too. We'll have to.
Oh, please. Oh, please.
So ThinkGeek has these little $99 cameras that have pretty good sound and can record at 640 by 480.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't want to record it because I'm wearing a backpack with a live streamer in it that Ustream's going to give us a live streamer. So
Awesome.
it uses, and I know there's no EVDO there, but it uses all 4 carriers at the same time, hoping that one of them.
One problem is, AT&T was borked.
I know.
Off
I know.
last year.
So this is going to have T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint all in one box.
Jesus.
All the sci-fi movies where they had a
Wi-Fi
camera mounted
in
on
the
a
center
guy.
is very.
Oh,
We never had a backpack.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, Thanks,
I
Robert.
just like to say people are tweeting the fact that I just called you my internet dad, and I feel bad. Now I meant that as like the deepest compliment, Leo.
No, I know. I'm not hurt in the least. What do you think? You think I don't know that I'm an old guy?
Internet big brother.
Big brother, my internet big brother.
No, don't say that. That's worse.
Well, that's kind of creepy.
Uncle,
For you,
mentor.
it's a good
I really
connotation.
meant mentor.
No, I'm
That's
not
what
your mentor. You're my mentor. You can't. You can't. That would be a crossing the streams. You can't do that. Anyway, so moving on into. I was going to do a commercial. Let me do a commercial, and then I'm going to come back and talk about the fact that Google's getting into the power business. First, they want to be a gigabit internet service provider. Now, they've got the go-ahead to sell power. What is going on? Before we get to that, though, let me talk a little bit about our friends at Citrix and their product GoToMeeting. I'm sure you've heard me talk about GoToMeeting before. It is a really fantabulous solution for people who are stuck in conference calls. And you'd think with all this marvelous technology we've got right now, we wouldn't have to be doing conference calls, but still I would say, 90% of business happens over the phone. And there's a good reason. It's really expensive to travel anywhere. You got to airfare and it's stressful and all that. So the whole idea is with GoToMeeting, you get the benefits of, staying in your office, not traveling, with the visual component of a conference call. You're on that phone call, you want to show a spreadsheet or a picture, you want to show buzz, you want to show a graph. We do it on our shows. We have a couple of hosts now who use GoToMeeting to show their screenshots during the show because they're remote. People can see what you're talking about. It's great for an online meeting. You can schedule it in advance or on the fly. Everyone sees your computer desktop on their screen. You can even trade it around so they see, I'll see your computer, you'll see mine. Mac or PC, doesn't matter. You can give control, so it's great for training. It's great for sales presentations, product demos, collaboration too. You could say, okay, let's work on this together. Try it free for 30 days. I know I'm not doing a good job of describing it. It's because it's really very amorphous. It can do whatever you need it to do. It will do. GoToMeeting it replaces the business trip. That's the key for me. In fact, if I could figure out a way to do South by Southwest via Go, maybe I will by GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting.com/TWiG. Try it free for 30 days. GoToMeeting.com/TWiG. GoToMeeting. We thank Citrix so much for supporting our show. So, what is going on? What's the deal? Google is this for themselves, or are they going to sell electricity to other people?
No, they said this a while ago. When they applied for this, because they're doing so much in power. At some point, regulatory reasons, you have to apply for this right, and they have it now, and so they may well have surplus power at some point. They
could sell power like a utility. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has granted Google Energy. I'm telling you, we're going to look back on this and say this was, at some point there's critical mass where Google just runs everything.
I'm proud that in my book, which I haven't plugged in a while, I speculate about Google becoming a power company.
What would Google do about that?
Well, they'd go get the regulatory approval to be a power company.
Yes.
It goes back. This is the best case of enlightened self-interest I can think of in business. If Google, through Google.org, can lower the cost of clean, renewable fuel, energy, it is a huge boon to the P&L of Google itself and the world too.
Well, I think there is a tension here of there's only a few businesses that require regulatory certification in order to get into them. Power, banks, a couple other things. Which of those businesses, if any, would Google not get into? Right? Would Google Finance someday grow to where they'll be certified as a brokerage house and a bank? Is there anything that they wouldn't say we want to be certified as that?
Prostitution in Nevada.
No, I wouldn't. Why rule anything out?
Yeah. There's a valuable AdWords market there.
Well, Larry and Sergey have always been interested in energy.
Okay.
Even a few years ago, they had this thing called renewable energy less than
energy,
coal.
Electricity, not prostitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get to that point where RE less than coal, that really changes the equation in lots of ways. So forever, Larry especially has been one of these guys where you ask about a particular type of fuel cell or something, and he knows how many BTUs of energy it puts out. So, these are people that really do care about this and pay a lot of attention to it.
They talk a lot about the grid being messed up and how the more we put our brains and our cars all on the grid, it's going to be a mess.
I want smart grids, smart cars. I'm sure Google will be in all of this. Why not? It sounds like they're basically Google goes into anything that Larry and Sergey are kind of interested in, they'll do.
Well, and Larry and Sergey have very wide-ranging interests.
Yeah.
I mean, Larry is sort of a true scientist in that, he's happy to talk about all sorts of stuff. And Sergey, of course, is a really smart guy too. But, sort of random things that you wouldn't think that they would be interested in. Sometimes they surprise you. So
Google Gears, RIP. Finally, the end to Google Gears. Gina, what does that mean? Is it HTML5 that's replacing Google Gears?
Yeah, it looks that way. Yeah, this is interesting. Anil and I were just talking about this last night. I mean, right now, Mac, OS 10.6, 10.6 users are kind of left in the lurch because they're, we're in this limbo where, a few Google apps use Gears and need Gears to give you some nice functionality, but they're, not developing it anymore. So it sounds like it's not going to come out for Mac users. But
on Chrome.
Well, yeah.
Because we were using it on Firefox. But no, it doesn't work on the current Firefox.
Well, the current version of Firefox doesn't have Gears.
Doesn't support it, right?
Right.
I think that's just that they haven't gotten it done yet.
Well, in the blog post at the Google Code Gears API blog, the title of the post is "Hello HTML5." So
yeah, I mean, moving to HTML5 is a good thing. I mean, it sounds that right now we're just like in a little bit of a painful place where HTML5 isn't quite as doesn't offer the same kind of functionality but whatever. But moving toward HTML5 is a good thing.
What
so
functionality is it? I always thought of Gears as kind of the ability to use Gmail without being online, that kind of thing. Is it more than that?
There's that kind of thing. There's that, and the one thing that I miss the most, Wave, you can drag and drop files into a Wave with Gears installed. Which I don't know if HTML5 would allow for that kind of thing.
So Gears is essentially a web applications platform.
Yeah, I mean it is a link between the desktop and the browser and an offline data store. Okay. So HTML5 provides an offline data store, but I don't know that if HTML5 would allow for the kind of drag and drop file upload type of thing that Gears does. I don't know. Maybe Matt.
I'm pretty sure it does. I think the thing that's interesting about HTML5 kind of philosophically is it is, all the other HTML versions up to 4 were really about making better documents, and HTML5 is about making better applications. And so you have the data store. I do think you have some of the drag and drop stuff. One of the most interesting things in HTML5 is called workers, and what these are is kind of background tasks that can run in the background in your web app. And be doing little things, in parallel instead of in serial while you're trying to make an application do something, similar to threads on a desktop application. And it's a really interesting thing, a little bit geeky, but the potential of that is huge. So there's a lot of nice stuff.
How does this tie in to Google announcing this week that it's doing a cut and paste to the cloud?
What's that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of separate. I mean, basically, Google Docs just, you copy something to your, Google Docs clipboard, and it just creates a document snippet that's saved in Google Docs that you can, paste into another Google Doc in another window. That's more like syncing your Chrome bookmarks up to Reader. It's just another way to store a piece of data in the web app. There's no, I don't think there's any kind of special. What I wonder is why
it couldn't. If it's storing stuff to the cloud, why can't it store stuff to my machine and let me use it on my machine when I'm on the plane?
Security.
Yeah, I know, but that's the problem.
Right. Well, yeah, you need to have a local API, a local storage API, if you want to have things like offline Gmail. But what's really handy, I like about the copy and paste, storing the information in the cloud, in Google Docs, is it can preserve the formatting. So right. I don't know if you guys have tried in the developer versions of Chrome, you can do copy and paste, and you can paste, and a lot of the times the formatting stays, the tables and stuff like that. In fact, there's a plain text paste if you do Control-Shift-V in Chrome. So that gets rid of all the formatting and only pastes the raw text. But even given that, some browsers might not support that. So by putting it into the application itself, you can make sure that the cells are maintained, the formatting stays the same, and you don't have to worry quite as much about what it's going to look like on the other side when you paste it.
Matt, how much are you using your Chrome OS machine?
I'm using it quite a bit. There is a new version of Chromium OS that's unofficial from a hacker called Hexa.
Oh, are you using the Hexa?
I
build?
am.
Oh, good.
Yes, it's called Flow. The newest version is Flow. The previous one was 0, and it boots really fast. It doesn't work on all hardware, but it works on more hardware, and it's just very tight, very nice, and very fast. Everything's getting polished off, and this is still basically, I believe, a 17-year-old kid, maybe in the UK. This is not even the official release.
So amazing.
Especially given all the security stuff going on, the idea of having a machine where your OS is locked down, where malware can't even get to it, is really more appealing in the last few weeks or months.
But you can't do anything offline on that machine.
No, not right now. But as HTML5 gets better and the local storage APIs take off, then I can certainly imagine you could do things like offline Gmail. It's just going to be a matter of time to march through all that progression of what's supported in HTML5 and then in Chrome and then in the hardware.
I can't remember what we're supposed to see.
Copy and paste is the kind of thing where I'd love to see an API.
Yeah,
I feel like that's where if every app on the web could use
it's very fundamental.
An API to push and pull, copy and paste, then we would at least be equivalent to where we were with desktop apps 20 years ago.
I wonder if you could use Salmon for that, because isn't that the idea of Salmon? Is it's a two-way?
Well, Salmon is more
some combination of that, or PubSub above or something like that.
Yeah, Salmon is a little more to pull comments from different places that they happen around the web and make sure that they swim back upstream to you.
Oh, okay. So it's not as generalized as that. Okay.
But if I had clipboard clients for my Google Docs account, and
wouldn't that be cool?
Push out my copy and paste there.
What I really want too is, I used to have this in old editorial systems. I don't want just one copy and paste. I want to have a copy and paste for every key on the keyboard.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And so I can move this and this and this and this and this, and then compile something together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
And I think
we've had that on the desktop, Microsoft Office stuff for 10 years or 15 years.
Yeah. Right. And I think you might be able to get that with the latest copy and paste stuff, because it says, well, it will store this in the cloud for a month. So after a month, if you don't use something, it'll eventually get erased. But that sort of implies that there's a certain amount of that that's still around where you can, okay, paste number 1, paste number 2, glom these two guys together.
How do I retrieve it? Do I get a menu of cuts?
I believe you do. I'll have to, I have to double check it in Docs myself to see exactly how it works, but I think that's right.
Did you, Gina, ever solve your Google apps? We talked a couple of weeks ago, and I think you got a car. Somebody, what did you call him? Clyde McGoogle?
Helpful McGoogler.
Helpful McGoogler contacted you because here's the issue: if you have a Google Apps account and you would like to use that for Buzz, and have it, well, actually, that's not a problem using it for Buzz, but it's having the common contact list, things like that become a problem.
Well,
right?
you can't use it for Buzz. You can't use it.
You can't.
For Buzz.
Oh,
right. Buzz isn't for Google Apps. So there's a Google account. And then when you sign up for Gmail, you get a Google account with Gmail as your email address. And you can associate any email address with a Google account. This is what you brought up, Leo.
I have 5 addresses.
Right, you have 5 addresses. You can associate any number of email addresses with a Google account. A Google Apps account is a Google account, but it offers a subset of Google services. So only certain services: Gmail, Docs, Calendar. But it doesn't offer analytics, Buzz, Reader, Voice. So if you have a Google account and then you say, hey, I'm going to use Google Apps because I like this idea of it being tied to my domain, which is what I did a while ago, you can't sign into those other services, as your Google Apps. So now I've been using my Google Apps account for 4 years. So all my contacts are very well developed. I have my groups. I have my most contacted list is the most true. That's the one that really reflects my activity in my Google Apps account. But so then when I signed up for Buzz, it was this old Gmail account that I don't use anymore. So you have these 2 data stores. You have contacts in both places. If you have a regular Google account and a Google Apps account, you have Calendar in both places. You have Docs in both places. So that's the issue. And Google is just slower. Just doesn't roll out new services like Buzz. Although when they announced Buzz, they said this will be out for Google Apps. So that was an improvement. But
if they're going to sell Buzz to the enterprise, they damn well better soon.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's on the roadmap. They said that from the get-go. So that's good. But things like Voice and Reader are kind of things that I really love to sign in with my
And the problem becomes too that I'm now investing in the account I don't want to use. Right. So Buzz, I'm going to build up my profile. I'm building up Buzz, and I don't want that to be my main one. I'm going to move it. I'm going to have to abandon that. Voice, same way. It really causes a switch problem even within Google.
Yeah,
yeah.
If it makes you feel better, if it makes you feel better, Google also runs Google Apps. We eat our own dog food. So we feel this pain as well whenever you have, say, a work account and a personal Gmail account. So that, that's the sort of thing where we see that happening as well.
So how do folks work around it? I mean, do folks just like, a lot of people just said to me, hey, I just forward all my Google Apps email to my vanilla Gmail account because that's, first class citizen. That's the one that's going to get all the good stuff. So do people internally at Google use their Gmail account versus their apps account? Or, I mean, does it depend on the person?
It definitely depends on the person. I do take my personal email and forward it to my work account. That way I never have to remember to go and check it. But if you want to keep something completely separate, like your reader account, the incognito mode of Chrome is really helpful. So Control-Shift-N opens up a new incognito window, and then you can log in with that on your personal Gmail. So you can have two windows open. One would be work, one would be personal. It's still not quite ideal, but at least that way you can handle most of your issues pretty easily.
Right.
Good. Well, there's a long post on smarterware.org where Gina explains what you can and cannot do, and it's worth taking a look at. Any other stories you guys want to cover before we move on to our tool tip and number? Pew Research says, or asks.
Oh, there's my number, Leo.
Okay, not going to say a word. Not going to say a word.
Jeez.
I'm just teasing.
One thing I'd like to mention is that Google created this thing called Living Stories. Google News did, which was really, in my view, trying to school newspaper editors in web presentation, that it's not all about your static article. You have to put a kind of an envelope of relevance around the news,
right,
and you have to have things that live on more to gain more Google juice. So they created Living Stories with the New York Times and the Washington Post. Full disclosure, Daylife, where I'm a partner, is working on something that will go beyond this called Smart Stories. But Google just open sourced the Living Stories code so that other papers could use it. And I really think this is part of the strategy of making papers smarter, making news people smarter, because they keep on trying to shoehorn their old models into the new world. So I think it's a good gift to newspaper folks. Leo, I think it's probably also worth mentioning that we're getting more information on the hackers who did the dastardly
deeds. I thought that was kind of interesting. The story which you bookmarked says, diverse group of Chinese hackers wrote the code, not just one, in the Google U.S. company's attacks. This is Ellen Nakashima writing in the Washington Post. Some of the computer code used in the recent attacks on the networks of Google and dozens of other U.S. companies were developed by a diverse group of hackers from China, including security professionals, consultants, and temporary contractors. This is according to an industry source. Source also said some of the contractors were based at Chinese and U.S. tech companies in China. Two schools whose servers were used were Shanghai Jiao Tong University, kind of the Caltech of Shanghai, and Longxian Vocational School. It's interesting. It sounds like, I mean, if you believe this, that the Chinese government is using their best and their brightest in this effort.
I love this vocational school. Hey guys, stop making new carburetors and let's go work on Google.
Yeah, I mean, they made it sound like there was a class where it was like, okay, class. Yeah. Now we're all going to try
assignment.
We're all going to try and hack Google. Like, that's today's project.
And if you cause an international incident, you get an A.
Right.
Extra credit if you can bring down Microsoft too.
Well, and one takeaway from any of this seems to be that security on the web just gets more and more important. And like when Chrome came out, people were like, "You're going to update, all the time without letting us choose whether to update." And looking back, that clearly seems like the right decision going forward. Or Chrome OS, the idea of locking down the OS and the data gets stored on a different partition that's writable, but the system is not writable. That we're starting to enter that era of the net where everybody that's on the net has to think about, are your web servers patched? Is your OS patched? And if it's not, you might get hacked. So, those are the sort of decisions people have to start thinking about these days.
There was a horrible wording at Davos of a Microsoft executive, I'm suddenly forgetting who talked about licensing internet users, which I think was a horrendous wording, and I don't think that even he meant it, but I think it meant more like licensing the machines and making sure that they are drivable.
Well, the interesting thing about that is we had that, I think a lot of people have the conversation about the iPad in terms of the control Apple has of what applications can run there. But we are getting back to the vision of, Microsoft Palladium back in 2002, this is the certification of which applications can run and what can be in this environment, and what they called trustworthy computing or trusted computing. And back then, everybody thought it was the devil.
But you now have Jonathan Zittrain talking about how you really ought to have a partition on your machine that one doesn't talk to the other. You can have your sandbox still, but
sure,
I could come to your machine and say, I don't want to play in your sandbox. I only want to play on the Chrome side.
Well, it's interesting, but I think in this case what it was just the research was right, but too far ahead of what people understood about the market, and presented in such a scary, creepy, Orwellian way that everybody said, hell no, I don't trust Microsoft to do this. And interestingly, we're at this point where apparently we do trust Google or Apple to do that.
And I do trust them more than Microsoft, frankly.
Right.
I don't.
Don't trust anyone. Trust no one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have friends at all three companies, and I think they're all doing good work, and I don't trust any of them.
Right. Well, you could trust them today, but you don't know what the board's going to be like in a week or a month or a year or 10 years, and they're going to have all that data.
If they have a bad quarter and need to make some extra money or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You always want to have your own data under your own control. Right. I would totally agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's do our tip and tool, and because we have a tipster, and actually a toolster, and I really should give the tool credit goes to you, Jeff, because you tweeted it and got an email from the guy who wrote it, and he wants to be on the show. So we're going to get Daniel Switkin on in just a moment. But before we do, though, let's let Gina kick things off with her tip of the week.
Sure. I'm going to skip the buzz tip for now. There's a link to the official Google blog with a few tips in the friend feed. I'm going to do something a little more obscure. The Listen app for Android, which Leo featured, I think, a few shows back, got an update this week, a really good update. You can subscribe now to your podcast in Listen on Android, and it syncs those subscriptions up to Google Reader. So if you do the update and you search for and subscribe to a show like I did for This Week in Google to listen to last week's missed show that I wasn't on, you'll see a new folder in Google Reader that says My Listen subscriptions. So it's got some nice cloud backups. You can manage your subscriptions in Reader, and they are reflected in Listen. So a nice update.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Listen. That's how I listen to all my podcasts now. So that'll be very nice to have that feature around. And Jeff, your number, now that I didn't steal it.
The Pew Project for the Internet, which just does constantly great research on we're going to look back at as historians, and they really are the best at trying to track how we're using the Internet, how we're using online. So the Pew Internet and American Life Project did a survey of a bunch of so-called experts. I say so-called because I was one of them, 895 technology stakeholders. And they asked the question that Nick Carr asked in his Atlantic piece about a year ago, is Google making us stupid? And I'm glad to see that 76% of respondents said that Google will not make us stupid. So
there you go. What do the other people think?
The other 24%?
Yeah. That it will make us stupid?
They were stupid, I thought.
Oh, the heck with them. Too much Google for them. So we're going to get...
Google for you.
You tweeted this, I guess it was today, didn't you? The new
No, it was a few days ago. I tweeted that because I'm constantly checking my Google News, Leo, to update the friend feed, or soon Buzz, and saw that the Google Shopper app is out, and it's really darn good. Well, so I got a response from Daniel, the tech lead, saying volunteering to be on TWiG.
Let's get the the darn good Daniel on the line right now. Daniel Switkin. Where are you, Daniel?
I'm in New York.
Well, thank you for joining us. And
hi, neighbor.
You bet.
Yeah, he's just down the road a piece. So if you have any shopping problems, Jeff, you're ready to go.
Well, I actually used it. I used it just last night. I went on and I used the voice command to find something. I won't say what it is because it was my wife's birthday. And it gave me the places, and I was able to go to the retailer, and I showed them my Android, and I said, I want that, and they walked me over there. It was, and I bought. Google got no credit for that sale, except in that salesperson's mind, but it was very useful.
There are a number of programs that let you take pictures of barcodes. Savvy Shopper's been around for a long time, from big in Japan and some others. Daniel, how is Google Shopper different from those?
Well, it's based on a lot of that work. So I was the co-creator of the Zebra Crossing open source library,
great.
And the author of the barcode scanner, capital B, capital S, on Android.
Okay.
So Sean Owen and I, a coworker, started those in 2007 prior to the Android release, and then we open sourced those. And to my knowledge, they are the basis of all of the Android scanning apps, all the third-party apps that I've seen.
So it's the same engine.
That's right, in terms of the actual image processing, the machine vision stuff. So then this, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I wanted to ask. I was curious about why Shopper and Google and Goggles, excuse me, are separate apps.
Yeah, because they're related, aren't they?
Sure. Yeah, we're getting that a lot. And I think a good analogy is the difference between web search and product search. Web search, like Goggles, tries to solve the general search problem. You can learn about anything, and whereas product search is a vertical. And Shopper is very much that way too. Although clearly the apps overlap because they can both search by image, Shopper is really about products. And so we let you shop by voice and by text. You have the full history. You have offline use. So anything you've seen before is saved locally, comes back up instantly. Starring, sharing. And,
is there any use of the long forgotten, but I still use it, Frugal, in there?
Well, the Frugal is product search. And that is our source for all the prices, reviews, specs, etc. So it's very much, we are very much building on the shoulders of giants with product data, with voice search, with the machine vision that powers Goggles. Exactly.
So it seems like you had all the
pieces
together to make this in fairly short order. Was it a big project to make Shopper, or no, you used the platforms available?
It was actually a pretty big effort. One key difference between us and Shopper is that we're doing continuous image recognition. And getting that to work and getting that fast has been, it's really one of the things I'm most proud of. We're able to do about an image a second, even on 3G, just by holding your phone up. And that means continuously sending an image to the server, trying to recognize it and returning a response every second.
Wow.
And whereas, previously there are apps like this. We're certainly not the first one. Snaptel has been doing product covers for a while, and they use a still photo, and then they upload it, and then a few seconds later you get the answer. So I had a coworker who said there's no such thing as too fast, which I really liked. And that is one of the central themes at Google, So the push was make this as fast as humanly possible, and we think it'll keep getting faster.
That's really neat.
So when are we going to see Goggles and Shopper for the iPhone?
No comment.
Just checking.
Why bother? Just buy a Nexus 1 for crying out loud and get it over with.
When are you going to add local to this? I mean, I think that the opportunities for local on this are obvious and huge. That find it near me. The fabled, oh, Jeff, here's a coupon you want to know about.
Yeah, some of the, I think Shop Savvy does that already, doesn't it?
They do have local features.
Find it cheaper nearby, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's something we're looking into. We've also heard a lot of requests for UK support and other countries, and all of those things are interrelated now because if we want this to work well in the UK, well, it has to understand British accents. It has to recognize British editions of book covers, British barcodes. It has to understand and find local stores in England. So the more search modalities that you have and the more data you present, the more difficult it is to launch in a new locale because you have to get most, if not all of them, working well.
What's cool about this is it isn't just barcodes. You can do book covers and other stuff. There, it got the barcode right there.
Right. So we do something kind of unique, which is we scan the barcodes locally. They're running the image recognition is running on the phone,
and then do the search.
And we're doing the cover art remotely on the server.
I see.
And
this
one of the
changes retail so much.
And stores hate it. there are stores that will throw you out if you whip out your phone and start taking pictures.
Well, those days are over. The opacity of market pricing is not going to last anymore.
No, they have to give it up.
I was talking with the CMO of Best Buy, who tweets quite a bit, and they're very, very, very smart. And the thing I keep realizing, talking to Best Buy, is that a store has to become, and Best Buy is becoming, more of a media experience. And the value it adds is going to be that they have experts, so they know what's going on, and they find the best stuff. But the back-end buying of the boxes is going to change pretty radically.
One thing that I didn't expect is it's not only for comparison price shopping. Something I've been using it for on my Nexus One that I didn't expect to is just building a shopping list. You know, you run out of paper plates or something, you take a picture of the barcode just to remind yourself.
Oh, good
It can be
idea.
even faster than writing something down in a pad of paper. So,
That's cool.
you know, you're going through the refrigerator or your cupboard and you're like, oh, I need a little more of this, I need a little more of that. And you just
So Daniel,
you-
and
by
that's
taking pictures.
shareable too, right? So that I can put that in my family list.
Currently, right now, you can share individual products and you can share your whole wish list, but you can't. It's not a bidirectional sync. It's just a one-time share.
Well, very cool. Daniel, thank you for telling us about this. When did you join Google?
Sure. About 3 years ago.
Okay. So did you do the Zebra library before you were at Google? Or?
No, I started that as a 20% project
Cool.
while I was working on Google Finance, and then it just grew from there.
That's one of the things that Google does. It's so smart. Is this 20% stuff. It's nice to see.
So what's your day gig now at Google? This?
Shopper is my full-time project. I've been working on this for about a year.
Fun. Well, it's great. It's a nice addition to the Nexus One.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks
really
a lot.
appreciate your time. Daniel Switkin,
you bet.
who is the developer of Google Shopper. So I'm going to make that my tool, even though, Jeff, it was yours. I'm gonna steal it from you.
You steal my numbers. You steal my tools.
I almost stole your numbers.
Jeez.
I almost stole your numbers. There are a lot of great tools though on the phone. I'll give you another
What new
one.
apps have you all downloaded?
I'll give you one
Anil,
that
are you on Android, Anil?
I am.
You are?
I'm on a miserable old G1. And
Horrid.
it's yeah. So I just asked, partially because I wanted to know, and partially as a test of the Think Tank application, what phone I should get. And I've been collecting feedback from everybody across Twitter and Buzz and Facebook.
Yeah.
And still
So can
reaching
everybody
consensus.
share an app that they've downloaded recently that they like?
Can I mention that at TED they were all given Nexus One phones? So
Yeah, that was nice.
a lot of high-end Nexus One users out there now. All of a sudden, I wonder.
They
If,
reacted
unless
very well.
they re-gift them.
well, I wonder if Bill Gates is going to use his. I somehow doubt it. Maybe
They
he
did the
will.
same at DLD in Munich.
Did they give Nexus Ones out?
They gave Nexus Ones out, and I'm donating mine to my school because I already bought mine because you
Right.
guys made me.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I got in the car where we drive from Munich to Davos, and the two people who were in the car, I said, you know, I got a tip to this effect. And I said, I think if we wait about a half an hour, you're going to get a Nexus One. They waited,
Oh,
and it was
smart.
so funny to see the crowd just like kids getting their graham
Oh, yeah.
crackers.
It's like when Oprah pulls a car out from under your seat.
Well, yeah.
Right.
So I'll give you.
Wait till we get Google Motors. Yeah, that'll be the moment.
So
coming.
I've got a bunch of apps, but nothing to recommend on my Android yet. But I guess my mini tip is the Google dashboard mentioned. We're very fortunate as consumers that Google's made dashboard for us, and I don't know if there's a mobile version. I would love a mobile version of Google Dashboard.
I wonder if you
Android
go
app.
in the browser, if you go to google.com/dashboard, if you must get a small version of it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it renders. I just think as an app, that's kind of
Oh,
giving
as
me a
an
live
app.
status of my relationship with this company. That'd be
Right.
kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, I think it's great that they do that. I've been using an application that was featured called Aloqua. Have you seen this one? Aloqa. I hate to do a featured app because I figure everybody probably already knows about it. Because I go to the market every day just to see what's cool and new and different. Well, yeah, if Eric Schmidt could not know about what was it he didn't know about?
He didn't know
Layer.
about Google Sky.
Google Sky? No, he didn't know about Layer, right?
No, layers. I'm sorry, layers. You're right, layers. Layers.
I would hope he'd know about the Google apps.
Exactly.
So
Sorry.
Aloqua is a kind of a local application thing. It pumps up a bunch of icons onto the screen that are based on your locale. I've got what's hot in my area, Yelp restaurant. So it's kind of like all in one. Last FM, music, bars and clubs, playing tonight in the area, housing, Wikipedia entries in the area, ATMs in the area, pizza, fast food, shopping. But you can add other channels. There's additional channels on this. It's a free app, and it's kind of a great all-in-one. It's kind of like Where, which I also use. Kind of great all-in-one. It's taken a while to find the other ones, but location-based app. I really enjoy it. ALOQA, and Hot will tell you what there's a lot of activity going on. So the hotpads.com has a couple of great houses for rent. Here's somebody playing at the Phoenix Theater in town, and here's another one. Kate Garibaldi is playing live somewhere nearby. So it tells you
the power of local's huge.
It's a very good application of local search that I think is very easy to use and very intuitive. ALOQA. What about you, Gina? You got something you like?
Well, I swipe, as I mentioned earlier, is my favorite keyboard.
Yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm not a big. I haven't gotten any really new apps lately. Although I've really been enjoying on the Google homepage. This is a web app, isn't an app in the market. Just on the Google.com homepage, that Near Me link is pretty neat. Just seeing stuff that's going on nearby.
Yep.
But yeah, no. Otherwise, I've just gotten my kind of regular. I've gotten into my groove. I've gotten into a rut. I got to start looking in the market more, I think.
Well, I told you about TWiG. I really like that.
I like the Thomson Reuters news app.
Thomson
really
Reuters.
one of the best news apps.
Yep, that's a great one. There is a Ustream broadcaster now, so you can actually shoot Ustream live streams with your phone. And the camera is so good on this phone, I have to say. I really enjoy taking pictures with it. And yeah, if you've got Buzz, don't forget to open Google Maps and turn on the Buzz layer, because then you can embed your pictures into the map. And then when you've got the Buzz layer turned on, not a lot of people buzzing in Petaluma, but when I was in San Francisco, there's little buzz things everywhere all around it, and that's kind of fun too.
That's nice.
Matt Cutts, thank you so much. You have a pick before we let you go?
Oh boy, I'm such a Androidaholic. So there's an LED scroller that will
Oh man,
scroll stuff.
I got to get that. What's that called?
What's that one?
That one's just LED scroller. There's a really fun one called Tricorder, which is just a way to see all the different sensors on your phone.
Oh.
So, for example, if I go like that, you can actually see the accelerometer doing stuff like that. But I have to say my favorite app lately is one called App Referrer. And all that does is it shows you a list of all your apps. And if you press a given application, it will display it as a barcode so that your friend can scan it.
Ooh.
So now you can do peer-to-peer sharing. Like if someone were to take a picture of that screen with their barcode scanner, which Daniel Switkin, wrote, you just had him on the screen. Now they can install that application without having to look in the market at all. So I can give you, if we want to trade LED scroller apps, I just hold it up, you take a picture with your phone, and you're good to go.
That's great.
That's clever.
I hope people are writing all of these down because I didn't.
I'm not writing them down. I'm downloading them as we talk. Sorry, I'm
Me too.
busy here.
I didn't ask you, and I meant to ask you, Matt. We had a big conversation on Twit this week about something called demand media, which is a very, you know about it, I guess. And it's a very interesting way. It's really, to me, it seems the way to game Google by creating a lot of pages with kind of, barely adequate content in a niche area to drive traffic.
Right. Demand media has been a very divisive, polarizing thing because they had this article come up in Wired that sort of portrayed them as very low-quality content. And, of course, if you listen to demand media, they say that, no, we're very high-quality content, and we're a way that freelancers can get, a reliable source of income. So
yeah, $20 a pop, but okay.
Yeah, you have to work pretty hard to get it. So from our perspective, we've tried very hard to reduce the amount of web spam, which means that the bar to do well on the web has gone up a little bit. You always see people who will try to produce the bare minimum of work or the bare minimum of content to try to do well. The nice thing is that, and your position on demand media depends on a lot of different things about your opinion. Within Google, we have seen a lot of feedback about people saying, yeah, there's not as much web spam, but there is this sort of low-quality, mass-generated content where, it's a bunch of people being paid a very small amount of money. So we have started projects within the search quality group to sort of spot stuff that's higher quality and rank it higher, and that's the flip side of having stuff that's lower quality not rank as high. So I think if your business model is solely based on mass generating huge amounts of nearly worthless content, that's not going to work as well in 2010. And I'll just
so rather than just
playing
whack-a-mole, with the bad stuff, you're trying to curate better the good stuff.
Yeah, you definitely want to write algorithms that will find the signals of good sites. The sorts of things like original content rather than just scraping someone or rephrasing what someone else has said. And if you can find enough of those signals, and there are definitely a lot of them out there, then you can sort of say, okay, find the people who break the story or who produce the original content or who produce, the impact on the web, and try to rank those a little higher rather than just trying to push down everyone that's bad, because news alert, there will always be more bad people.
And that's a challenge for Google News as well. And I argue that in the link economy, it becomes an ethical matter to link to content and journalism and news at its source so that you can support it by links, because that's how you get the support. I've interviewed Stephen Kidd from Demand Media and Sean Colo. I ran a panel with him in Munich at DLD. I think it's important, though, Leo, to recognize that Demand Media has a key insight that's a lesson for the rest of media. It's one I learned at About.com, where they really look at their Google queries all the time and say, oh, look, people are asking for this. They're asking this question. We don't have an answer. Let's write it.
Right.
In my old days of media, we decided what questions to ask.
Right.
And so Demand just does that algorithmically, and they look at the highest demand for content and the highest demand for advertising and put it together. And I don't blame them for that. I think it's very smart. My theory, though, and I want to see if Matt checks me on this, my theory is that the more Google goes to personalized search that takes the signals, as I talked about in Buzz, to find out where you are, who you are, what you do, the less SEO as a dark art can succeed in making that kind of mass-produced, cheaply produced stuff succeed, because everybody's search becomes different.
Definitely personalization and things like local search results, even by metro rather than even by country, sort of take a monolithic set of search results and break that down into a bunch of different search results. And that's a really good thing. You don't want to be competing with every plumber in the world. You'd rather be competing with the plumbers in your nearby area. And then that's good for users because they get local plumbers as well. So I think that's the way that things are going. There's always going to be a need for evergreen, really useful content. Some of the most read comments or read posts on my blog are things like how to hack the iPhone was a post I did several years ago, and what Firefox extensions do I use? And that's useful for people across the world, not just in individual places. But increasingly, if you go to Google and you type something like bank, if you're in the UK versus Australia versus the United States, you really don't want Bank of America in Australia, and you really don't want other countries' banks if you're looking for something that's really relevant to you. So personalization and all of those sorts of things means there's no longer one set of search results you can bookmark, and someone in Topeka or someone in Transylvania will see the exact same thing as you. Now it's much more diverse. It's much more useful for individual local searchers.
Well, I'm glad I brought up the subject. I don't want to get too long a conversation. We'll just have to have you back and we'll talk more about it. But
I think, Leo, if you want to have the people from Demand Media on, too, they're very public about it and open about it and willing to enter the debate.
Yeah, and I think you make some good points.
My full disclosure here, too, is I was asked to be an advisor, and I turned it down just so that I could maintain my independence in talking about this.
That's where Saul Hansel ended up going, right?
No, Saul Hansel's doing the equivalent at AOL called Seed. Okay. You have the Paid Content had a conference in New York on Friday, and they kind of had all these together at one place, which is AOL is doing this, trying to find new quality ways to do it. Associated Content does it. Suite 101 does it. Demand does it. And About does it, each with a different model, but they're all trying to create content to be on the other side of a search query.
Right. Very interesting.
And I think, but here's the other important thing that I think happens too, and then I'll stop, is that we talked in the past about the spheres of discovery. The old media brand was a sphere, search was a sphere, algorithms were a sphere, and now the importance of Twitter, Buzz, and Facebook, that is to say human recommendation of content as a means of discovery, I think is very important to get past this notion of spam and content farms. And if people are recommending things, which is what's happening. We're all going to Twitter and Buzz now, asking a question, getting an answer. The more you can capture that value, I think the less of this content farm chaff is going to be a problem.
We are going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here. Matt Cutts is in charge of fighting web spam at Google, and it's nice to get it.
God bless you, sir.
God bless him. He's doing God's work there at the Google Ranch. Anytime you want to read more from Matt, mattcutts.com. He's one of the most forthcoming and interesting fellas there at Google. And we really appreciate you joining us on This Week in Google. We don't
Good to be here.
Yeah, it's really, really nice to have you. Of course, we also want to thank the great Anil Dash, who is just a great thinker, a great blogger, and now runs Expert Labs at expertlabs.org, and was smart enough to get Gina on board.
Very fortunate. Very, very lucky.
That's great. Have fun at the AAAS in San Diego.
Thank you.
And I guess I'll see you at South by Southwest.
Absolutely.
That'll be fun. And you too, Gina. See you down there. Gina thumbs up. Gina Trapani is at smarterware.org. That's her blog. Great place to get lots of useful tips and information. She's still working on the Complete Wave Guide at CompleteWaveGuide.com, and I've been told by our chat room that they have Complete Buzz Guide should you decide you want to branch out.
So sweet. So sweet. I love our chat room. They're so helpful.
Aren't they great?
They just assigned homework to you. That's what
right.
I heard.
We need a new book. Gina, would you like to write it? It's great to have you, Gina. We'll see you next week. And, of course, Jeff Jarvis from buzzmachine.com, and he's an adjunct professor of journalism at the City University of New York.
No, I'm on staff, not adjunct.
Not adjunct, a real-life professor.
Associate professor.
Associate professor, the penurious professor. And also the author of What Would Google Do? And if you would all just go out and buy a couple of copies right now, we wouldn't call him penurious anymore. Thank you, Jeff. Great to see you all. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on This Week in Google.